This diagram here is truly profound. It is astonishing, but with this, I believe God has clearly communicated the day the Antichrist will rise to power. Something extremely significant regarding the Antichrist, probably in relation to Israel, should occur on this day. It could be the day the treaty is made with Israel that is described in Daniel chapter 9, an agreement that enables Israel to rebuild the temple. This day of the Antichrist is April Fool's Day, or April 1st, 2018. First of all, how symbolically appropriate that this false prophet of false prophets, whose role is to deceive the masses, would rise to world leader on April Fool's Day. This coming April Fool's Day will also coincide with Easter Sunday, the first time this has occurred since 1956. April Fool's Day has Catholic origins. What is astounding is that the Pope has decided to enact a power he has to change dates for Catholics and declare that this year there will not be an April Fool's Day. Instead, next year there will be 2 April Fool's Days. This power of the popes to change laws regarding dates has not been enacted since July 15, 1782, when the then pope canceled the date of his brother's birthday because of an argument. The reason this is absolutely astounding is because of a prophetic passage in Daniel chapter 7 regarding the Antichrist. Quote, "And he shall think to change the times and the law," quote. That the Pope is enacting his power to change the law regarding a date on this day that God is clearly revealing as Antichrist Day is amazing. Arguably, the biggest mark the Roman Catholic Church has had on history is changing the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. I believe it is likely that the mark of the beast, prophesied in the book of Revelation, will include mandatory worship on Sundays. It is written that conforming to this false religious worship and taking this mark of the beast will be a ticket to eternal separation from God. Incidentally, for those that study prophecy, the 1260 in this same passage also refers to the 1260 years of religious as well as temporal authority the Pope held from 538 AD to 1798, when Napoleon stripped the Pope's temporal powers. The beast's mortal wound that is healed in Revelation 13:3 refers to the Pope regaining temporal power over the world. I realize many are looking for an Islamic Antichrist, but Scripture does not support this. Quote, the Assyrian quote in Micah 5 is a metaphor for the Antichrist prototype, which was Antiochus Epiphanes, just as Mystery Babylon is a metaphor for Rome. Not only is this April Fool's a day when the Antichrist Pope is changing a date, but 6,666 days prior to this day is Y2K. This is stunning. This was New Year's Eve in 1999, when the mainstream media was hyping up a possible doomsday due to the internet and computers malfunctioning, when the date changed to the year 2000. So here we have this day of the Pope changing the date, connecting to a doomsday scenario that was all about dates changing. This connection is made through none other than the Antichrist's number, 666. It is also 666 days prior to this April Fool's Antichrist Day, to the very prophetic day on June 3rd, 2016. Again, this was the day of the Paris talks to divide Israel without Israel, coinciding with the peak of the epic floods in Paris, as well as the day the 2 ceremonial jets crashed that were number 6 in their squads, one being a Blue Angels jet that crashed right after flying over Obama's speech, thus being a sign that he is the second beast in the book of Revelation, with jets that are number 6, 666 days back from Antichrist Day. Also, 222 days prior to this April Fool's Antichrist Day is the Great American Eclipse Sign of Jonah Judgment Sign. First, the reason the number 222 is profound is because it was the year 222 AD that the title of Bishop of Rome was first used. This title later became Pope. The reason why it is extremely profound that Antichrist Day points to the day of this eclipse is because of the eclipse's path of totality it marked on the map. This path, and the path of totality of the next American eclipse in 2024 that will also divide America on the map 7 years after the Great American Eclipse, together procure an X mark on the map. This is a Tav mark, a mark of Shibboleth for God placed by angels on the foreheads of those that were spared the destruction of Jerusalem in the book of Ezekiel chapter 9. As with many things that are the inverse in the New Testament from the Old Testament, this Tav mark on the foreheads given by the Antichrist will be their demise, not salvation. I need to mention that it is my theory that the mark of the beast may not be an actual literal mark. The hand and forehead are metaphors in the book of Deuteronomy 11:18. From April Fool's Antichrist Day, it is 70 days back to January 21st and the day of the launch of what is called the Humanity Star, what is in reality the Antichrist Star of Bethlehem. Let's quickly take a look at January 21st before returning to this Antichrist Day diagram. As shown in this diagram, there are a number of day counts pointing to this date of January 21st that together imply that they could only have been procured by God. It was 153 days from the sign of Jonah and impending judgment sign that was the Great American Eclipse on August 21st to January 21st. The number 153 is the mysterious number given in the book of John, chapter 21, that symbolizes the harvest of fish and the length of time of the church age. Also, from the beginning of Jesus' ministry in 29 AD, it is 153 times 13, or 1,989 years, until 2018. Here, the number 13 symbolizes Jesus plus the 12 apostles that began the church age. Additionally, it is 120 days from the Revelation 12 verses 1 to 2 sign on September 23rd until January 21st. Again, God gave Noah the number 120 as the length of time until judgment and the flood. It is also 70 days from the Revelation 12 verse 5 sign, Star of Bethlehem, Jupiter-Venus conjunction, on November 13th until January 21st. The number 70 is the length of time of judgment on Israel when they were exiled to Babylon. 70 sets of 7 years is also the length of time in Daniel chapter 9 that concerns God's plan for the Jews and the arrival of the Messiah. As well, 2018 is the 70th anniversary of the rebirth of Israel in 1948. Why did God point to January 21st? First, the Humanity Star was launched this day. This satellite's sole purpose is to reflect light and be observed by everyone on Earth. Its creators also have a political message behind it, one of humanism and socialism. Quote, "For us to thrive and survive, we need to make big decisions in the context of humanity as a whole, not in context of individuals, organizations, or even nations. The Humanity Star is a way of looking beyond our immediate situation, whatever that may be, and understanding we are all in this together as one species, collectively responsible for innovating and solving the challenges facing us. We must come together as a species to solve the really big issues like climate change and resource shortages." Quote, "This Humanity Star encapsulates much of the politics of the Antichrist and his spirit, that of a new collective world order that focuses on the wrong issues and tries to solve them without God. That this satellite was launched on this day, marked by God, just days before the beginning of the end times, clearly makes this the Antichrist Star of Bethlehem. Further supporting this is that it is expected to come back to Earth about 9 months later. Thus, like the Star of Bethlehem, it is symbolizing a birth. In this case, the birth of the Antichrist, with his humanist and socialist agenda the world will love. From the day of the Antichrist Star of Bethlehem, it is 17 days to the launch of another Antichrist sign in the sky. First, in the Bible, the number 17 is associated with the timing of the reign of a king. The timing of the reigns of Joseph in Egypt, Rehoboam, Ahaziah, and Jehu are all associated with the number 17. In this diagram, 17 refers to the soon-to-be time of the reign of the Antichrist. On February 6, 2018, Elon Musk's company SpaceX launched its first commercial heavy rocket. The media was enthralled with the event, and watching the reusable rockets return to Earth and land safely was spectacular. The rocket launched Tesla's new Roadster, the world's fastest car, into space. What is very interesting are the many examples of Antichrist symbolism surrounding this event. First, the company names its space missions Dragon missions, and it has 6,000 employees. Making its way to the Red Planet, this red Roadster car symbolizes the red horse in the book of Revelation and Zechariah. The red horseman is the Antichrist if Revelation chapters 7 and 6 are read in reverse chronological order, as I believe they are meant to be. This reverse chronological order puts the rapture first and makes the white horseman Christ. This makes sense not only because Christ is riding a white horse in Revelation 19, and because otherwise the red and white horsemen in Revelation 6 are redundant, but because the white horseman has no arrows and instead has a bow, that is a rainbow, at the end of judgment, similar to the rainbow at the end of the flood. This theory is supported by the beasts in Revelation 13 being in reverse chronological order compared with Daniel 7, as John is in the future looking back in time. Therefore, the dummy driving the red Roadster is the red horseman, the Antichrist. At the steering wheel, the dummy also symbolizes independent transhumanism man in charge of his own future destiny without God. Further, the dummy is said to be carrying digital copies of Isaac Asimov books about a future utopia without God, and is listening to David Bowie, a pop idol that used Antichrist symbolism. Elon Musk said he expects the dummy to be contacted by aliens. This is huge because I expect the Pope's rise to Antichrist rule over the world will come through aliens. Paul tells us in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 that the power of the Antichrist will come through the deception from Satan. Aliens are demonic deception. I don't have the space here to go into detail, and I recommend you watch my videos numbered 3, 4, and 5, but it is obvious that the Pope will come to power when aliens arrive, claiming to be here to help us, and make the Pope world ambassador. Adding even more weight to this being Antichrist Day is the daily Bible reading for April 1st. As previously shown, God has used daily Bible readings to demonstrate meaning he is conveying. This day's Bible reading is from Deuteronomy chapter 18. It is about warning against abominable false religious practices. It is also a warning against false prophets. How exceedingly appropriate for this daily Bible reading to coincide with Antichrist Day. What is a very interesting addition to this message that God is giving us is that April Fools Antichrist Day is exactly 49 solar years from the decree to rebuild Jerusalem in 1969. As explained earlier, the decree to rebuild Jerusalem from the prophecy in the book of Daniel chapter 9 is the key date in history that was given by Archangel Gabriel that is used to tell Daniel when the Messiah would arrive. I also explained earlier that 49 years from the decree to rebuild Jerusalem in 1969 completes the 69th set of 7 years before the final set of 7 years, or end times. This chapter 9 of Daniel speaks of the Antichrist making a covenant with Israel at the beginning of the end times, presumably allowing the Jews to rebuild the temple. The fact that these Antichrist Day signs incorporate this 49-year connection to Jerusalem and the temple indicates that this is that momentous day when the Jews and the Antichrist reach an agreement, allowing the temple to be rebuilt. Speaking of the first beast in the book of Revelation, that is the Antichrist, a presidential portrait of the second beast in the book of Revelation was unveiled on February 12th. Obama is depicted in a garden, quite a break from tradition with other past presidential portraits. This painting carries with it serpent in the garden symbolism. In Genesis chapter 2, the serpent in the garden is Satan. The uncanny garden symbolism between the two beasts goes further. When Obama met the Pope in the Vatican in 2014, he gave him seeds of fruits from the White House garden. Fruit, of course, being symbolic of the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden, and seeds representing the seed of Satan in Genesis chapter 3. This was in recognition of the Pope being the first Pope to open the papal gardens to the public. Obama told the Pope he would like him to visit the White House garden. Sure enough, Obama received the Pope at the White House garden, on the south lawn near the Rose Garden and First Lady's garden. This was a very prophetic 2 years, exactly before the Revelation 12 sign on September 23, 2015. 2 years carries a lot of symbolic meaning in the Bible. That these two leaders met exactly 2 years before the Revelation 12 sign in the garden is astounding. It makes it very clear that these two are the two beasts in the end times. During the White House visit, Obama gave the Pope a statue of a peace dove. This is interesting due to the sign we received when the Pope's two peace doves were immediately killed upon release by a crow and a seagull in view of everyone. While in the U.S., the Pope conducted Mass at Madison Square Gardens. This is an image of the Pope sitting at a concert in Philadelphia that I think is revealing of the Pope's occultism. The backdrop is Baphomet. Here's an image of the Pope sitting on his creepy pits of hell throne.